our sake.
All right, AH21 is now broadcasting live on Periscope.
So watch what you say.
Nah, we're good.
Well, no one's watching anyway, right?
Oh, we probably already have a couple people watching, and this will go up on our YouTube channel after the fact,
Broadcasting via
youtube.com/AH21.
Periscope, so this is being watched by every submarine in the world.
Nice.
It's a very specific audience, I feel too.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you all for coming out. This is our third birthday celebration. Years past, it's been just a live stream on either YouTube or Periscope. So we're moving up now that we're actually getting people out and feeding them and having a location. So I'd like to thank. So I'd start by thanking the wonderful people at Wallace Books who are hosting us tonight. We have Pablo and Karen here. Woo! Good friends of ours for the past year. We've had 7,000 or 8,000 events here, and this is the largest crowd yet. So, so it helps that we feed you. That's the key. We need more food, Pablo. More food. We had alcohol at least for our Arlene Vegas event, so that was a decent crowd. But we did. If we would have had the alcohol from the beginning, it probably would have had even more of a crowd. So, but it's a good start. So thank you all for coming out. Now, I look back at the past year, we've done a lot of great things. We put out the third AH21 annual, this time an all-digital literary magazine, which allowed us to explore more things we could do. We were able to add video, we were able to add audio, and of course, extremely cut down the cost, since we didn't have to do a print, and a lot of the layout time was cut down. So, and we, once again, a good swath of contributors from around the world, putting in some great poetry. We didn't have any essays this year. No, we had one essay, just from Dr. Saylor, yes. And then we were here at the beginning of October for the launch for that. So, and that went very well. We had a number of great events. Jim King and I have been to Virginia Comic-Con down in Richmond, and we've been here for events. We've been at Leesburg at Books and Other Found Things. We've done the DC Author Fest at the MLK Library downtown with Bianca Palmisano. We're hoping that we can go back this year, but that's if they have it, because they're renovating that building this year and they're now looking for a new location. So hopefully that'll happen again. We had the Kensington Day of the Book a couple weeks ago up in Kensington, Maryland, and that went great because the weather was horrible on Saturday, horrible on Monday, but Sunday for the book fair it was perfect, and we couldn't have asked for better. We had a great location. We thankfully put up the wall in the right place, otherwise we would have had some not so great poetry shouted at us all day. Well, because we had the wall, when Jim started throwing things, they didn't make contact. So yeah, there were a couple people that definitely novice doesn't quite go far enough as a description. So yes, and of course we had the honor of being joined. We have a new creative, Thomas P. Atheridge, joined with us this year, author of American Presidents at War, which will be coming out soon. Ebook, we're aiming for D-Day release on ebook. Then we will have paperback and hardcover to follow, and we are currently in negotiation with the Center for the Book at the Library of Congress for the launch party. And because Tom is a library employee, as I am at my full-time job, and he did a tremendous amount of his research at the library, so obviously it should be a given that we'd be able to make that happen. But we're working on it. So then after that, we'll have some more events for Tom in the area. In fact, we already have a commitment from Montgomery County Libraries that they would like to purchase 15 copies once it's released. So
Nice.
yeah. So that's a good start. That's 15 sales already for a book that's only been pre-ordered for a week. So so we'll do our best to get it out there to the various schools in the area, the other county library systems, and get Tom out there to sign some books and have some good success with that. We also had a new poetry book out from Bianca Palmisano. Will This Be on the Final this past year? Which will be out in print very soon from Lulu.com. We put out Michael Judkins' poetry book, Interlude to Sentimental Me. And since then, he is now working on another poetry collection we're looking into be publishing this fall. Then we had increased our podcast series. When we had our webcast for last year, we had at that time, I believe we had 4 podcast series. We were about to add a couple more, and now we're up to 8. And part of that is thanks to Mr. Evan Tucker, the executive producer and star of both Tales from the Old New Land and It's Not Even Past, A History of the Distant Present. So,
that's actually 3 podcasts.
Well, it's all how it ends up. Yeah. And then, of course, we just launched one a couple weeks ago, I Stand, with host Michael B. Judkins, an interview podcast, which is going out weekly right now, and then it'll convert to monthly to run through the rest of summer. And, of course, with the increase in podcasts, and we'll have even more audio work to come, we had a new member of our staff join recently. That's Zach Cohen, our Chief of Audio Production. Now, I'm going to have him come up in a few minutes to talk, but not quite yet. I'm going to finish going through the rundown of things. So we have a lot's been going on. A lot more is to come. We try to, once we get about a month and a half out from these birthday events, I kind of stop doing any announcements of things so that we have just a whole plethora of announcements for these events. So we have several big ones we'll be making tonight. And thank you all for joining us as we look back at the year that we've completed and look forward at what we have to come. And of course, plenty of food and drink on the table there. We have brochures, pens, and other things, and feel free to take and enjoy stuff about Tom's books, stuff about Jim King's wonderful Hive series are there, and all kinds of good things to come up. So, start off, the first thing we wanted to announce, now it's perfect with coming here. The first event we had here at Walls of Books was the print release for Hive First Contact, Jim King's first book in the Hive series. And at that event was also when we released the cover art for his second book, Hive Battle of the Dog Star, which came out last fall, and it was print as of March. We released a print run of that. I brought a couple copies with me tonight, so it'll be available here. And that came out at the Maryland Writers Conference in Annapolis. Now, we're happy to announce that starting tonight, we are now in the process of publishing the third book in the Hive series, A Matter of Gravity. So, Jim, can you come for a second to talk about Matter of Gravity?
Well, Matter of Gravity, it's another space opera, as the genre is known. I grew up in the golden age of science fiction, back in the time of Asimov and Poole and a lot of people like that. I don't pretend to be a great writer. I do pretend to be a good storyteller. And this is in the nature of the way science fiction was. And the cover art is kind of retro. The size of the book, it's a pocket book like it used to be that you could put in your pocket. So, anyway, the story is invasion of aliens, a battle, a war that runs across a couple hundred years of the Earth Empire resisting these aliens. And it's really character-based. It's about the people who fight the wars. It's about Marines and sailors, they're not truly sailors, I guess, if they're on a spaceship, are they? But astronauts, or whatever you want to call them. So it's just a series of books detailing that sort of thing that's all in my mind. And I hope you read and enjoy it.
Thank you, Jim. Now, of course, we've already started to see the beginning of the cover art from British designer Matt Sadler, and just as the previous Hive books, you can see here with Hive First Contact, and it's already, just showing it to my management team, Jim, and it's already getting some good remarks, so.
Good.
Yeah, so we look forward to being able to release that sometime in the next few weeks. And of course, also in the next few weeks, we hope we have another creative that will be signing with us shortly. So we're looking forward to be able to announce that soon as well. So let's see what time is it? Oh, 6 o'clock on the dot. How's that for timing? Okay, so now not to undercut the great announcement of Jim's next book, but really the big announcement that we're making today. This is something I've thought about for a long time, and it's sort of it wasn't the original plan, but as AS21 grew in the ways it grew, kind of a reassessment of how we were doing things. Now, my dad used to be a history teacher way back then, and he was a history teacher between stints working in a steel mill. And one of the lessons he liked to teach is what killed off the railroads. What killed off the railroads, as he taught it, was in the beginning of the 20th century. They were riding high, they were doing great, they had rebounded from the most recent collapse in 1893 where they had overextended themselves, but they were coming back up. And suddenly you had these young upstart guys coming to them asking for money because they had an idea for a horseless carriage, for transportation, for an individual to transport, powered transportation, and be able to go farther with not having to worry about the upkeep of the horses and stables and all that. And when they went to these railroad guys, it's like, we're not going to invest in that because that's not our business, and in fact, it's going to hurt our business. But as you look at it, what they didn't understand, yes, they were in the railroad business, but really, they were in the transportation business. And if they would have just listened to Henry Ford and listened to John Chrysler, then maybe the railroads would be a heck of a lot better than they are today, because they would have made a fortune once the invention of the assembly line, once the horseless carriage became, the thing that everyone has, in the case some people have three, and completely killed off the horse industry. Now that's the one that. So with that in mind, AS21 has been a publishing company for the past 3 years, but over time we went into podcasting, and we've grown with that. And the idea was that to keep on going in the audio route for maybe audiobooks. But when I really looked at how our podcasting has taken off and how we've been able to succeed with that, and really what I wanted AS21 to be, it wasn't just being a book company, it's being a company about stories, about telling stories. And for that reason, now we are AS21 Media.
I've doubled the stock price.
And instead of what do you want your book to be, it's now what do you want your story to be? For the ways the internet consumes things now, it's not just books, it's video, it's audio. So we are going to now approach the market on that setting. Instead of attacking the publishing market on the three-pronged of going after writers, self-publishers, and readers, we're now going after print with books, audio with podcasts, and then viewers with video. And so to that end, we have changed up our structure a bit. I'm still maintaining the role of publisher, overseeing all of AS21 Media. But in order to run the core of what is now one of our divisions, AS21 Publishing, I introduce our new Chief of Publishing, Corey Parker. Told you you'd have to talk, Dixon.
I don't like that. Yes.
That's why you're on the publishing side.
Yes.
I'm an introvert. This is my home, bookstores. Anyway, most of you know me already, and most of you have had interactions with me, even if we've never met, like Tom. So, yeah, it's good to be here. What would you like me to say?
Well, pretty much that was it.
Okay.
Thank you, Corey.
That's great.
Man,
Corey's been our editor-in-chief for the past 3 years, and when I was looking at, dividing up the responsibilities now with these division heads taking over some of the roles that thankfully I've been able to take off my plate, there was no better person I thought to take on the publishing end than Corey. So thank you very much, Corey, for accepting this responsibility and helping out. Now, of course, now we are going to be increasing what we do with audio. So for that, I'd like to call up real quick our Chief of Audio Production, Zach Cohen.
Thanks. I'm Zach. If you are producing a podcast, I'm the guy sitting behind the computer making sure it all sounds nice and goes out to all the proper channels. I've always really liked podcasting. I probably subscribe to way too many of them myself, both for listening at home and for work. And podcasting, I think, is really experiencing a moment right now. I think we've all sort of seen that with the success of things like Serial and This American Life and radio in general. When you're in the car, when you're doing your dishes, you can still process those stories and make them a part of your life. And so I'd really love to do more of that with all of your stories. So we're expanding, we're adding new podcasts by the day. We've got more coming down the pike. So it's been a lot of fun. Only been here, about a month and a half at this point, and it's been exciting. So.
Well, I have to say, from before Zach came on, I was taking care of all the editing, all the production work. And for good and for bad, as Evan can tell you.
What response is that?
Yeah, sorry. Support it.
When they have the Behind the Music documentary, AIS 21 was going great until one man.
And then Evan showed up.
The agent of chaos.
Well, we had the right possibilities, opportunities come at the same time. We had Evan start working with us, and then we had a possibility of more work outside of the company come up. And so I put out a call through my friend group, through Facebook and such, and Zach answered the call to join on as our Chief of Audio Production. And we have a couple other people that are interested in learning some audio engineering stuff, so it won't fall. I mean, I'm still doing some of the audio work, and Zach does most of it now. I mean, it's been refreshing I haven't had to do a thing with iStand. Zach has taken on iStand entirely, from the intro episode to all the editing work so far in production. And thank you for your help so far, Zach. It's been very, very welcome.
It's been fun.
And of course, to that end, with the increase, now that we have dedicated audio and we're showing how our commitment to audio, we are now starting two announcements on that. First is a pilot program we'll be launching this summer, where we are going full on into audiobooks. While we are currently constructing a recording studio in my basement, I'm just getting all the pieces together. I already got the microphones, and that I just need to kind of make the room a little bit more soundproof. So working on that, but we're going to be doing audiobooks, and the first two books we're going to be producing is my first book, Post Soliloquy, and I'll probably be reading myself. I apologize for that. And then Paul Dickinson Russell with his fantasy epic, The Will of the Magi. He was eager to, once the Publish Me podcast finishes this September, he's eager to want to start recording that. And so that will be the first two books to come out as audiobooks from the AS21 pilot program. And Tom had expressed interest in recording American Presidents at War, and of course, we already have so many of the poems of our AS21 poets for the poetry podcast, so it wouldn't take much more to record some of our poetry books. And then, of course, we'll move on from there. And then, of course, in effect, Evan's podcasts are technically audiobooks, just released chapter by serialized, released on iTunes. So that's basically, that's what we were building with the podcast, was being able to get to the point where we could produce audiobooks, slowly getting them the hardware and the software built up, and we feel we're ready to do that. So we're going to start doing that this summer. And additionally, and once the pilot program is done and we've got a few books produced, which not only will be for sale on iTunes, Google Play, media.as21.com, but also on Audible. We'll also be putting them on the flash drives. That's what we currently do with ebooks. So you'll be able to get, when you see us at events like here, Walls of Books, or at the book fairs, we'll have the books, ebooks on flash drive, audiobooks on flash drive, and then, of course, books in print. Then, eventually, if the pilot program goes well, then we'll look into making the audiobook program something that someone through the ePress 21 self-publishing site can pay us a set rate for us to be able to produce audiobooks for outside authors and self-published authors. Now, as far as production stuff where we're going to go ahead and start with services now is if you have a podcast that you want to produce, but you don't want to be part of our network, which we're fine with that. All right. We do sort of, we are curating a network with a certain focus, although we do go out of that focus quite a bit. But there's sort of a core to the storytelling of it. But if it's something that's not looking for us to host specifically, we are now offering, as of tonight, we'll be offering services where you can have your podcast produced by us, where it's just, you send us the audio files, we'll put it together and give you back the finished thing at $40 an episode. But if you're doing audio editing, if you need editing work or you need any voiceover, we could do that at $10 an hour. And so that's new services that we're launching tonight that Zach is willing to put up the time to make happen. So
My mom once told me I had the voice and the face for radio, so so I'm excited to start. Doing more.
I got the face for radio and the voice for newspapers. So that's why I've been journalism for so long. But yeah, so we have 8 podcast series now, so we've learned a lot, and we've already started working with an outside company helping them produce one of their podcast series. So we're going to hope to continue moving with that and create an additional revenue stream for the company and keep Zach working until he burns out and runs away screaming.
Got a couple more months yet.
Yeah. Absolutely. So thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Okay. So now there's just a couple more announcements, a couple more staffing announcements. Unfortunately, 6:10, so it's a lot faster than I expected to be going through this. So we have plenty of time to continue to eat and mill about and buy some books. Oh, excuse me. And that's with restructuring a little bit, I wanted to make sure that those staff members that have been with me from the beginning, that have really put a lot of time and effort, got the proper reward for their time. And although they tend to volunteer, they volunteer their work, what I can do, although can't do as much monetarily, but what I can do is try to make when they put it on their resume look as nice as possible. So we have 2 additional promotions, not just with Corey Elevation to Chief of Publishing, but Joshua Silverman, our webmaster and technical consultant for the past 3 years, as of today is now our Chief Technology Officer. So while most of his work has been software based, he's also going to be now helping review hardware needs for both whenever we need to test out microphones or soundboards or anything for the audio side, or if we need to test out video equipment or anything for the video side, he's going to be taking that on a bit more. And then for the past 3 years, Adam Wallach has been our creative adjacent, and his primary responsibility is reaching out to our creatives and making sure they're informed of events coming up, trying to do some basic scheduling, but essentially just being a point of contact so that I don't have to deal with getting emails all the time and letting people know that what sales are going through. Well, Adam is now taking on a little bit more responsibility with that. He's going to be helping recruiting creatives a bit more, being a little bit more reaching out to creatives as far as keeping them, if they're working on projects, keeping them on schedule, kind of more support. So he is now Chief of Creative Relations as of tonight. So thank you to Josh for couldn't be here. Josh is currently in Israel, and Adam is finally back in Las Vegas after spending weeks and weeks backpacking across Southeast Asia, which we are all so lucky. So yes, all right, and that pretty much covers all the major announcements we had for tonight. So we still have plenty of food. We've got many of our books available here on the shelves, as well as many other wonderful books here at Walls of Books. I'd like to thank Pablo and Karen for having us once again. And then, of course, they were also on this month's edition of the Publish Me podcast, which came out on the 7th, and we talked about bookstore events and trying to make them successful, doing things like having food. And I think so.
Free beer works.
Yeah, yeah. So thank you very much.